And it's time for our Creation Ministries International segment. And today we have Mark James from Creation Ministries International in New Zealand. Good afternoon, Mark.
Good afternoon, Mick. How are you?
Awesome. It's great to have you back with us again. Of course, Mark has a Bachelor of Science, honours in Organic Chemistry from Victoria University of Wellington. And, of course, when it comes to speaking with Mark about creation and evolution, he brings a lot of knowledge with him, knows a lot about, chemistry, and probably looked in plenty of microscopes, I'd say. Is that right, Mark?
Chemists don't usually look down microscopes, to be honest, Mick, but yes, I have an honours degree in chemistry, but it was a long, long time ago now. A long time ago.
Wow. And I do have to just mention right now, Creation Ministries International have their own website. It's called creation.com, and you can actually go there and get, any one of probably 100,000 questions answered just by typing into their website. It is a brilliant resource. But of course, Mark is a brilliant resource, and we have him with us right now. And if you have any questions for Mark, we'd love you to send them through to us. Just text 0401 949 949. That's 0401 949 949. Now, Mark, I'd like to kick us off with something that, you sent me this funny-looking email, and it had this heading. It said, the ATP synthase enzyme. Don't even know if I'm saying that right, but it's like the whole thing's a different language anyway. Can you tell me what that is, Mark?
Well, what you look at, you've actually had a look at the animation, I'm assuming, Mick?
Yes, lots of little colours spinning around.
Yeah, basically, what I've sent you there, it's an animation of some of the machinery that operates inside living cells. And it's quite incredible that the discoveries that scientists are starting to make today inside cells just blows the mind. I do a lot of speaking to youth groups, and one of the things I like to do with them is I like to sort of talk them through a little scenario where they're an explorer, and they found an island out in the middle of the ocean, but it's not on any of the maps. So the possibility is that it might be an island that nobody's ever found before. So these kids have this is great because they might get to name this island. And I said, okay, so if you think it's not, there's never been a human being on that island, how would you test that? And of course they say, you go onto the island and you'd look for evidence of human beings having been there. Yep. Because you're trying to prove your hypothesis wrong. Your hypothesis is that the island has never been discovered by human beings. And I say to them, so what would you look for if you're looking for evidence that human beings have been there? And we get to the point where they say, we'd be looking for design, something that could only have been designed by a mind, intelligent design. And then I say to them, okay, so what if you were to find an electric motor on the island? And of course, they all throw their hands up. They say, yeah, of course, that only an intelligence can design an electric motor. And then I say, okay, what if you were to find a robot walking around on the island? And they'd say, that's obviously, very, very high intelligence has produced this robot. And then I take them into the cell and show them these animations of what we're finding inside the cells. Well,
this thing looks like a motor. It's got bits going around. It even looks like it's got like cogs or wheels that sort of power up the next bit along. That's like one bit moving the next bit.
It's designed exactly as we would design an electric motor. It's a little bit different because it's obviously very small, but it's driven by protons rather than electrons. Our electric motors are driven by electrons. These ATP synthase motors, they're driven by protons inside the cell. And they produce a molecule called adenosine triphosphate. Now, it's a big word, but the easiest way to remember it is ATP. And ATP is the energy currency of all living organisms. Mm. And apparently, your body, Mick, your body produces and consumes half your body weight in ATP every single day.
Wow.
That's how huge our energy requirements are. And this ATP, when it's broken down, it releases a lot of energy. But first it has to be made. It has to be assembled. And it's assembled inside the cell by this ATP synthase motor. And it's just, it's astonishing. I'm hoping you might be able to actually put a link to this motor on your website so that people can go in and see this animation, because it's fabulous. It really is.
So you're saying that there's one of these inside every cell in our body?
No, there's millions of them inside every cell. Hundreds of thousands of them probably. The operation that you're seeing producing that ATP, that actual operation is performed 1 million times per minute in every cell of your body.
Wow. Okay, and so these things are teeny, teeny, tiny. They must have used a pretty amazing microscope to see them.
Yes, the scientists that actually discovered the operation of this machine actually got the Nobel Prize for their work. I mean, that's how vitally important discovering how this thing operates is to science. The interesting thing with electric motors is when we produce electric motors, when human beings produce electric motors, the efficiency of the electric motor can be, and this is how much energy is turned into work. That's what efficiency is. It can be anything from sort of 75 to 95% efficiency at larger sizes. But as you reduce the size down, our motors become less and less efficient. Mm-hmm. The machine, the motor you're looking at there, 100,000 of them could sit side by side in a millimeter, and they operate at virtually 100% efficiency.
Wow. And they really do look like a little tiny motor. It's just like they are miniaturized motors. When you first explained to me, these motors, I sort of couldn't picture them. Now looking at it, it looks like a little motor. Something simple you might use on a little, I guess, toy car or something. However, what it's doing, and I can see when they sort of move the image towards the top, you can see how there's millions of these little, I guess you call them little bits of energy coming out, and that's what it's creating, those little blue things.
Molecules. Little molecules, yeah.
Wow.
And you can imagine, I mean, when you talk to kids about looking for intelligence, signs of intelligence, and you find an electric motor on an island, and that's a sign of intelligence, and then you show them this motor that's inside our cells, and the obvious conclusion is that what's inside our cells has required intelligence to design it. Yeah. And as soon as they start to make that link, they start to realize that we are without excuse. What we see in the world around us is absolute proof of the existence of God. As well, I mean, yeah. And these kids, once they see this, they just get it. They get it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Mark, look, we've got to go into a short break right now. We'll be back with Mark James from Creation Ministries International very shortly, and he's talking to us today about little tiny machines that are actually inside every one of us. And they've got pictures of them. They can show how they actually work. It's amazing. And he's explaining it all to us. And we have Mark James on the line from both New Zealand and Creation Ministries International. And this afternoon, Mark, you've been telling us about machines that are inside our body. Now, when you first started telling us that there was machines in there, and I think Dr. John's even mentioned it before in this segment, I didn't really know what to picture. And so, of course, you've sent me some links of videos, which, well, this evening I'm going to link to the Radio with Mick Facebook page so as everyone can have a look. Or, of course, they can go to the creation.com website and you can type ATP synthase enzyme, and spelling synthase, SYNTHASE enzyme. And it actually shows these little tiny weeny motors that are inside your body. Now, Mark, we've had a few questions come through, which is kind of cool. I guess other people are also trying to, picture these things. And the first question actually says, Hi, Mark. At what speed, say revs per minute or second, does this ATP spin at?
Scientists have found that they actually spin at 7,000 revolutions per minute. So these are the speeds are astonishing, and every rotation of the motor produces 3 molecules of ATP.
Okay. Well, the next question we got was to help us understand how big is the human cell that this little motor sits inside?
Not an easy question for me to answer, to be honest, because I'm not a biologist. But the first thing I need to say with these motors is that they're not just in human cells. ATP is the energy currency of all living things. So these ATP synthase molecules are found throughout nature in cells across biology, basically. The human cell, I can't actually give you an idea exactly how big a human cell is, but it's microscopic, obviously.
Yeah.
And in fact, go back to the times of Darwin, and all they saw of the cell through the microscopes they had then was just a blob. Now, today, with the microscopes we have, we're just making these astonishing discoveries because we can see the machinery, the structures that are inside the cells. But what I might do, Mick, is before we speak next week, I'll do a little bit of research and get an idea of just how big the cell is.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of blows my mind a little bit that there's things actually inside me spinning around. But they're not just spinning around. They're spinning around at over 7,000 revolutions. Was that per minute?
Per minute, yes. Now,
and there's millions of them.
Yes. Yeah, as I said, this operation is 1 million times per minute in every cell in your body. You've got probably between 30 and 50 trillion cells in your body. And every one of those cells is doing this operation 1 million times per minute. Just to give you an idea how important ATP is, or this ATP synthase motor is to life, the poison cyanide. If you were to take cyanide, it would basically it'd kill you in about 30 seconds. That's how quickly cyanide kills you. Yep. The way cyanide works is it actually works by stopping these ATP synthase motors from working.
Wow.
And that's how cyanide kills you. That's how important these molecules are to life, these machines.
Wow. And look, we did get a final question there too. Did you say, Mark, this little motor produces all the energy our bodies use?
As far as I know, yes. ATP is the energy currency for all life. So yes, this is where the energy comes from for all living beings, including us.
Wow. It's so weird seeing something that looks so much like a little motor and thinking there's millions of those inside me. Little tiny weeny motors. And that's not all you sent me. You also sent me a different motor. It's called the Kinesin linear motor. Where do you find those?
Again, they're found in the cell. And when I finish talking to youth about the ATP synthase motor, usually I've got them to the stage there where they're saying, oh, yeah, it's obvious that there is intelligent design inside a cell. And then I show them the Kinesin linear motor. And basically, within our cells, there has to be a transportation system to get products from one side of the cell to the other. And this happens through a motor called the Kinesin linear motor. And it's almost like a postman. And what happens is there are highways that are assembled within the cell, and these highways are assembled using instructions that come from DNA. And then marching along the highway is the Kinesin motor. And basically, these things walk. They have a body, they have legs, and they have feet. And these feet walk step by step along these highways.
I was about to pull you up and ask you if this is fair income, because when I looked at it, I didn't turn the volume up, and I thought it was some little cartoon character.
That's what it looks like. It's certainly what it looks like. And this little cartoon character, which these are walking around inside a cell. So not only do you have electric motors working inside your cell Mick, you have little robots walking around on highways inside your cell, and these robots have a big sack that they carry along, and inside that sack are proteins, and these proteins are taken to the part of the cell that they're required. So there has to be instructions telling them where they need to go, and they take this big sack of proteins to wherever they need to go, and then those proteins are released to do the job that they need to do within the cell.
Wow. Wow. So these little fellas are literally walking around inside me, and there's millions of those as well?
There are, yes. And the kinesin linear motor, for every step, it uses one molecule of ATP. So that's where a lot of the ATP goes for these transport systems. And it takes the kinesin motor 125,000 steps to cover 1 millimeter. That's how small these things are. And this I say to the youth, this is like finding robots walking around or finding robots walking around the island. And of course, when they saw robots walking around the island, they went, oh, yes, the designer of these, whoever's been on this island is an incredibly intelligent designer. And then you show them these things which look like robots walking around inside cells. And it just, they just connect the dots. They realize that life cannot be explained without reference to an incredible, all-powerful, all-knowing God. With
a cell, okay, somebody who believes in evolution says, okay, well, there was just this little one-cell thing that it just went pop, it was there, and then it started turning into other things. That little one single cell that we've always thought about as just being, just pop, bang, it's just this little circular thing, has actually got lots of these little tiny motors inside it. Is that right?
Absolutely. And the thing is that it doesn't stop there because, what you're seeing is just two motors. There are hundreds of these different motors within the cell, but not only that, there are scaffolding systems which are required to build the motors. So, and all of this has to be encoded within the cell. It's actually all the information to make these things is encoded in the DNA. And the DNA is read by machines. There are machines that are almost like tape record. The old tape machines that used to read tapes.
Yep.
Well, there's machines inside the cell that do that, and we'll talk a bit about that next week maybe. But and all of this, it's encoded in the DNA. It has to be read. It has to be, then these machines have to be produced, and the information for showing how these machines work and where they have to go, it's all encoded in the DNA. It's astonishing.
So this is inside one single cell.
Yes. And the amazing thing with this, Mick, and it's actually sad, but I watched a video on YouTube that showed how these machines work, and this was about 6 months ago, and they'd just discovered that with this kinesin motor, there were actually 45 different versions of this motor. And it's almost like, those renovator tools that you can get from hardware stores where you've got your battery and you've got your handheld piece, and then there's the top piece that you can change out. You can interchange different bits on the top.
Yes.
That's how the kinesin motor is designed. So there's 45 different versions. Actually, now they know that there's probably close to 100 different versions of it. And the feet and the body are the same, but they have these interchangeable pieces on the top so that they can carry different loads for where they've got to go to. So it's like having a renovator tool where you just clip in whatever you need at the time, that's what you clip onto the top of it.
Wow. Well, look, I have to link this to Facebook so as people can look at this because, it blows your mind thinking these little tiny motor things and these little cartoon characters are actually really and truly inside us doing this work. And that single-celled organism that we get told about, it just popped into existence from, it was nothing and then it was something. You could see how impossible that is with these motors that are so intricate in design. It just couldn't possibly just pop into being. It makes no sense.
And I did say that it was sad. The video I watched on YouTube, the man who was showing us this incredible information about these machines, he put it all down to evolution. Which
Wow.
it's just so sad, because people have this mental block. These kids, when they see these things, they say, yeah, it's just like finding a robot on the island. It has to be intelligent. But there are scientists out there who are studying these things, and it's like they have blinkers. They cannot see past their evolutionary worldview.
Wow. Now, Mark, we've had another question come in, and it says, how would you describe the complexity compared to the complexity of computer programming?
Dear me. But this is the complexity of DNA, I assume we're talking about here. Computer programming, our computer languages, we use what's called binary. It's a series of ones and zeros, on-off switches. Mm-hmm. And that's how everything is programmed. Within DNA actually has 4 bases. So it's not binary. There are 4 rather than 2. So it's significantly more complicated, more advanced than our standard programming systems today. But it's not only that, because within DNA, within strands of DNA, you can have the instructions to build a motor being read in one direction, but you can turn that round and you can read in the opposite direction, and there'll be completely new set of instructions in the DNA.
Wow.
So it would be like having a book where you read the first chapter in one direction, and you get the instructions for something, and then you read the chapter backwards, and encoded in reading it backwards is a whole different set of instructions. And actually within DNA, the way it's set up, you can have 6 sets of instructions encoded in the same area of DNA.
Wow. Wow, and that's way more intelligent than we are.
Yes. In fact, scientists are now starting to look at DNA as using it for information storage, because it is such an incredibly sophisticated and compact storage system for information. A 2-millimeter drop of DNA could store the same information as a pile of encyclopedias stretching from the Earth to the Sun.
Wow.
And for those people out there who don't know what encyclopedias are, for you younger people, a 1 terabyte hard drive is considered to be a pretty good storage today in computers. A 2-millimeter drop of DNA is the equivalent of 4 million 1 terabyte hard drives.
There you go. Wow-wee. And that's just the tiniest bit. Oh, man. Yep. Look, anybody that says that, a single cell is not created by an intelligent being, I'd love to hear how they can justify that. It just sounds so ridiculous. But, I mean, we've seen them on TV, but they never go into detail. There's no detail as to how that single cell just popped into being. Particularly after you explain it like this, Mark, as the most intricate, unbelievably complex. It's like a little world inside a single cell with all these little dudes running around and the machines, and it's absolutely incredible. So I will definitely put that link onto the Radio with Mick Facebook page later on today, so as people can go and have a look. It is incredible, and of course they can look at creation.com as well. Mark, thank you so much. We've come to the end of another week, and I'm very much looking forward to next week already. So thank you so much for doing what you've done.
It's an absolute pleasure, Mick. Thank you for having us.